Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting and Work Session for December 1st, 2020. If you'd like to join in and listen, the phone number is 360-252-9020, and the PIN number is 1234. I am John Hutchings, the chair of the board. We also have Vice Chair Commissioner Time Menser. Commissioner Gary Edwards is in the boardroom, and we have our County Manager Romero Chavez. And has Robin joined us? Robin Campbell?
Yeah, she's on the Zoom, I believe.
Okay, so we have the Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, and we have assorted directors from various departments. But we're going to start with the Department Director for Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter, and we have Dr. Damiana Abdelmalik and our County Health Officer to give us a COVID update. Take it away.
Good morning, Commissioners. We continue to see COVID-19 cases rise in Washington State with 165,019 confirmed cases in the state since this pandemic began, with 2,774 Washingtonians who have lost their lives. Here in Thurston County, our latest data indicates since this pandemic began, Thurston County residents 3,216 tested positive for COVID-19, with 386 new cases confirmed in the last week. 46 Thurston County residents have died of COVID-19, with 2 occurring in the last week. 216 people have been hospitalized to date, with 52 of those hospitalizations occurring in the last week. In terms of test positivity, the latest information that we have is 7.4%. As a reminder, less than 2% is our target, and likely the 7.4% is an underreporting because the state is not currently able to report negative results to us. Total outbreaks to date in Thurston County in congregate care settings is 23, with 13 currently under investigation, and 3 new outbreaks in the last week in congregate care settings. Our case rate per 100,000 in Thurston County is 260.7, the highest that it's ever been, extremely high transmission rates. Hospitalization, we're looking at that regionally now, as hospitals throughout Washington State are coordinating their beds to ensure that there's enough beds for the general public, as well as for COVID positive patients. In the Southwest region, 73% of our hospital beds are occupied, with 10.9% of those occupied by COVID patients, and 7.1% of ICU beds being occupied by COVID-19 patients. And with that, I will pass it over to Dr. Abdelmalik to share some further information and updates.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As you've heard, we do continue to have high COVID-19 transmission rates in Thurston County, and we are continuing to see that household spread, travel, and private gatherings being a driver of spread within our county. We did see a drop-off in cases over the weekend, but that was likely due to testing sites being closed for the Thanksgiving holiday. So we're watching this coming week extremely closely, just because the disease transmission that occurs over these holiday weekends tends to set the stage for our COVID transmission rates going forward. So we're going to be watching that extremely closely. We did get a bit of good news yesterday in that a new app called WA Notify was released. So this is an app, so you can either turn on exposure notifications if you have an iPhone, or download an app if you have an Android. It's completely voluntary, and it's a collaboration. So it's from the Washington State Department of Health, but it uses technology developed by Apple and Google. And a lot of that, and it's been vetted by privacy and security experts. And it doesn't track personal or location information, but what it does do is it allows your phone to send a changing random set of numbers to phones that are next to it. And if you meet the close contact definition for somebody who later tests positive, then you get an anonymous notification pushed to your phone. The way that happens is that if someone tests positive for COVID-19 and they've opted in, they'll get a code from public health that they'll put into the app. And then the app looks at all of the anonymous codes that they've been close to. So, closer than 6 feet for 15 minutes or more over 24 hours. And then those folks would get an anonymous notification that they've been exposed, as well as instructions on what to do next in terms of how to, access services, contacting public health, and testing information. So this is really exciting. I do want to stress that it is voluntary, but computer modeling suggests that if just 15% of folks use this app, it has the potential to decrease infections of COVID-19 by 11%, and it also has the potential to decrease deaths by up to 15%. Of course, if more people use the app, then these percentages would rise. And really what this allows us to do is, a lot of us have questions. Am I being exposed to folks in the store? What about if I have to ride the bus to work because I don't have a car? Or, all of these different risks. And this allows people to know if they've been exposed and how they can protect themselves and their families. So it's very exciting news, and it holds a lot of promise. And we're looking forward to supporting our community, those who choose to participate in making the best use of this technology. With that, I want to chat with, I also wanted to say that while our transmission rates are high and going into winter, I'm expecting them to remain high and potentially climb higher. It's really essential that folks get their flu shots, continue masking in public, avoiding indoor, in-person gatherings, and if people have to gather, because I know that it's the season to gather in groups of less than 5 outdoors, in addition to staying home when they're sick, staying home when they're instructed by public health. And if you have symptoms, making sure that you get tested early. So these are all essential ways that we can help keep ourselves and our community happy and healthy. So thank you so much, Commissioners. With that, I'm open to any questions.
Well, I'm sure we each have several questions. I've got several things, but since you ended with the Washington Notify or the Law Notify app, I just wanted to add that I heard that is in 30 different countries and in a dozen states in the United States. And as you said, Doc, that it's completely voluntary. You can opt in and opt out at any time. Now, I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just giving information, opt in and out at any time. And when you said that if you had been exposed and you get a notification with follow-up suggestions on what you can do, they're not mandatory either. You can throw them out the window or take advantage of them, but it gives you options, right? It's all about options. So I just want to pass that on, because only when the contagion rate goes down will we begin to normalize. So with that, I'm going to turn to the commissioners. Commissioner Edwards, questions or comments?
Yes, I guess I'd just follow up on your question, sir. Follow up with the notification of what you can do. What does that mean? If the exposure was only momentarily, it's kind of like nothing, but if it's for a half hour, do X, and if it's for longer, do X and Y. What is that recommendation going to be, and what's it based on?
So that's the really exciting thing about this app, is that for the exposures that don't meet the close contact criteria, so for exposures that are less than 15 minutes, you would not be notified. So folks would only be notified for exposures that meet the close contact definition. And so they would be then given public health instructions, including testing, including contact information for public health, for quarantine instructions. Really what this does is it doesn't replace the case investigation and contact tracing that we're already doing, but it augments it and it strengthens it by including folks that someone might not remember being close to or might not have the contact information for.
For an example, would it give maybe a phone number for you to call to set up an appointment to go get tested? Is that one of the options that might come out of that?
So at this point, it would give information on if testing is recommended, and we're collaborating with our Department of Health colleagues so that to make sure that the messaging that Thurston County folks get is specific to the Thurston County context.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
Yeah, thank you. I sat through a presentation on this. I think I talked about it last week.
You can ask, yeah.
Just to boil it down for Commissioner Edwards, basically it's, you get a notification that says you've had an exposure of a certain duration that you may not be aware of, get tested. That's it. There may be other information there about where to get tested up, but that's the essence of it. You get told that you had an exposure, you can decide not to get tested. No one's going to force you, but it's just letting you know, like you say, if you're sitting on the bus, you never know. So that's really, could be really useful. I'm pretty skeptical of privacy, and I sat through that presentation and I was pretty convinced that the privacy concerns have been addressed in terms of the way it's anonymous and the way things aren't stored and the way it's done through anonymous codes, not connected to any personal information. So they kind of walked through that. The state of Washington presented this to county officials a couple weeks ago. So I was pretty impressed by what was put together. So I would encourage people. I will advocate, Commissioner Hutchins won't, but I will advocate that people, to turn this on, and it'll really help. So I've done it on both of my phones, and hopefully people will be comfortable with it and use it. That's it.
Oh, good. I just didn't want people to think I was giving an infomercial. I had also heard that COVID is destined to be one of the top, or in the top 5 causes of death. And I think that was in the United States. And that there are more COVID fatalities than there are pneumonia and the flu combined. And that, whoa, are you kidding me? Because so many people think, well, it's just the same as the flu. And look at the rates, and they're different. Well, I'm not sure I believe that at all. But one of the interesting things I heard was that, and I read this in the paper, that statistics had been done. I think this is within Washington State, and you can correct me, that since COVID began and in March, and there was so much information being put out, and don't come to the doctors unless you absolutely have to. If you think you've got the sick or you got COVID, don't come unless you actually have to. That as a result of that message being sent, child vaccinations have been down considerably. They were down, like in August, down by 50%. And then in September, they were down 20%. And so it seems like people, maybe now parents are getting their kids vaccinated, but they weren't getting vaccinated. And you don't want to compound the issue. Do you want to expand on that for me, and then I'm done? No, I'm not. Yeah. I got one more thing after that, but go ahead.
No, thank you so much for bringing this up. Vaccinations for vaccine preventable illnesses are essential, and are even more essential today as we appreciate the protective effects of the vaccines that we do have, that we know are safe and effective. So earlier in the season, at the beginning of school, we held vaccination clinics for folks as public health and social services. There were four sessions that we did hold, and what I would like to do is encourage parents who may have put off vaccinating their kids to check in with their pediatrician. because I know a lot of the folks in our area have really worked on creating safe processes to provide this absolutely necessary service and this absolutely necessary protection to the youth in our community.
Right, because the last thing we need now is mumps, rubella. What's the other one? Mumps, measles, and rubella taking hold. We don't need that at all. Now, with our penal institutions, the state penal institutions, when there's been an outbreak, those folks have been moved to an isolation and quarantine center outside of the prison. Is that correct?
In some cases, if they're not able to be accommodated in their institution.
Okay, so and that's a setup for this. That regarding Western State, with most, I don't know if it's all or most of the civil commitments or nonviolent mentally ill folks have been reassembled or reinstitutionalized back into their communities. That there's another outbreak, or there's an outbreak at Western State Hospital. And are those folks being INQ'd there at the hospital, do you know, or are they being integrated into local communities?
I am not aware of what their plans are for that.
My concern, of course, would be if that's what's left, if those folks that are left are dangerously mentally ill, but they're under isolation or quarantine and they can't facilitate that in the center, I just don't know what to expect. I'm just kind of wondering.
I can say that we have not received any information or request from Western State Hospital to accommodate any of their patients in Thurston County in our isolation and quarantine facility. There are Western State Hospital being located where it is. We do have many people that work at Western State Hospital that live in Thurston County, and so anytime there's high transmission like this, it's gonna have impacts on our major healthcare systems.
Oh, thank you. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm comparing folks with mental illness with jail incarceration, but they're just state institutions housing multiple people. That's the only comparison of the length that I'm drawing there. Anything else, commissioners? No. Oh, Romero, please.
Yeah, thank you. This may be a follow-up to Shelley and a question for Dr. Abdelmalek. Shelley, you briefly touched base in terms of the negative tests that are not reported by the state. It seems to be there's a lot of community members. They see the number of positive cases that we have on a daily basis, but they struggle to make a relationship in terms of how many negative they have. Can you elaborate? I think you briefly touched based on that. Can you elaborate on that, please? And the question for Dr. Abdelmalek is, can you give a definition, the difference between infection rate and transmission rate?
Yes, Romero. So in terms of testing, what we learned last week was that the state reporting system was overwhelmed by the number of COVID cases in Washington state and the number of labs that were reporting both negative and positive cases. And the data system was not able to process and store all negative and positive results. So a decision was made to temporarily prioritize positive only. The labs will continue to report those negative numbers, so we will get that later. It's just for right now, we only have the positive cases to report from the last week. So hopefully we'll catch that up soon. But in order to calculate that positivity rate, which is a really important metric for us to tell us what community transmission might be like in our community, you have to know the total number of tests performed so that you can calculate that rate. So that 7.4% is probably likely a lower number than what it actually is, because we don't know the total number of tests that that people have had in Thurston County in the last week.
Thank you.
Could I have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, sure.
What are we doing about when we talk about testing positive or negative? we've got a lot of private institutions or even maybe public schools, but say an employer that is testing regularly. So if we have a number of positive tests, are those positive tests relayed to the local health jurisdiction as part of the count? And are the number of negative tests also relayed to the local health jurisdiction so that the numbers don't get skewed and just end up reporting positive when there might be many thousands of negative tests as well, but maybe they are not reported? I'm just curious. I don't know if they are or if they aren't. Could you touch on that?
Go ahead, Dr. A.
So that's a really good question. So institutions are required by law to report positive tests to the public health department. So we know about all of the positive tests. In terms of tracking the negative tests, we do that too in collaboration with the Department of Health. Of course, when we're in a surge situation, as we're in right now, the focus is really on controlling the spread of this illness to prevent, to prevent further infection, to prevent hospitalizations, to prevent deaths. And so that definitely takes priority in our efforts, especially at the local level where we're interacting with and talking to people on the ground. And there are, so negative tests do get reported. It's not that they don't, it's just that sometimes there's a little bit of a lag time as we really focus our capacity on things that can impact the trajectory of disease in our community first. So that's
okay. Let me do just a quick follow-up on that. Then, if it's a requirement that every positive test is reported to the local health authority, but are you saying it's also a requirement that all the negative test numbers are reported as well?
Yeah. So all of these tests do have to be reported.
And I just want to add that how that reporting happens is that the labs report that into the state system, of which we in Thurston County then access. So it's not, in most cases, not a separate reporting process for Thurston County. There are certain types of test results that we do get in other methods in Thurston County, such as the tests that we perform or other tests that we're receiving, such as from our tribal partners.
I also wanted to circle back to what was brought up about transmission rates. And there are a number of ways that we actually we follow how patterns of disease spread in the county. The ones that you're used to hearing about are cases per 100,000 over 14 days. But there's another way that we measure how COVID-19 is spreading, and that's the effective reproductive number, or R0. And that really looks at, for each person who's infected, how many other people do they on average infect? And so we know with COVID-19, there are a lot of people that isolate, stay home, they get better, they don't infect anyone, but there are also super spreader events that we've seen across the country where one person can get, tens of people, has the potential to get tens of people sick. In Western Washington at this time, our R0 is 1.4. And that just means that for each person who gets COVID-19, 1.4 other people on average also get the disease. So in order for for the pandemic to be on a downward trajectory and eventually end, we need to bring that R naught value to less than 1. And the lower we can get it, the sooner this pandemic can end. But I just wanted to make sure that we brought things from the big picture, which is cases per 100,000, down to the small picture of how each one of us, if we got COVID-19, really has that responsibility to try not to infect other folks.
Okay, then that does bring on one other question. It seems to me there's entities out there that are doing some pretty extensive testing. A lot of them are even doing the 15-minute test. And as far as I know, I don't think any of them, they might go for days and do quite a bit of testing and never have a positive. I don't think they're reporting the fact that they're getting all these negative tests. So I just wonder about how good the numbers are, kind of based on those kind of issues that could fall through the cracks of whatever the regulatory stuff is. That's all.
Yeah. So so with point of care testing, it does pose an additional challenge in the public health world. So on the one hand, having quick and rapid testing helps us identify cases sooner and helps folks know what to do to keep themselves and their families safe sooner, which is a huge boon to controlling COVID-19. When we do have point of care testing, we actually have forms. So because in order to perform the tests, you have to have either a lab certification or a CLIA waiver, which is a different type of certification. In order to maintain that certification, you also, and to maintain that ability to provide testing, you do have reporting, folks do have reporting requirements. It's just, for some of the point of care testing, it's a paper sheet with all of the information that any lab would collect that gets faxed to us, or so there are methods, and we are working really closely with folks who are doing the testing to make sure that they are reporting and that they have the forms and everything that they need to report everything accurately to us.
Thank you.
So I'll end with what I started with, and that is only when the contagion rate decreases will begin normalizing, and everybody wants to get back to some level of normal. But you got to get this under control. We all have to get this under control. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Dr. A. Appreciate it. We're moving on to homeless strategies, and we have our very own Keely Marino. Good morning, Keely.
Good morning, Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. Just a brief update for you today. Again, of course, starting with the Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance Program being hosted out of CAC, which is the Community Action Council of Lewis, Mason, and Thurston. To this point, they have served 523 Thurston County families or households. They've paid 1,562 back months of rent. Again, I will repeat that it was initially that they could only pay 3 months, and now they can pay up to 6 months and can serve a household more than one time. They've spent at this point around $1.8 million of those funds in these efforts. And if anyone needs rental assistance, you can call 360-438-1100. First, you press 8 for housing and 7 for the ERAP program. So please don't hesitate to reach out. You might be surprised that you could find yourself eligible. Moving onward, I met yesterday with the City of Olympia regarding continuing conversations around the safe parking program. Met with their engineer for the city, as well as their public works director, Rich Hoey, and we discussed what our next steps. So at this point, they are looking at no less than 40 vehicles, a mix of smaller vehicles and recreational vehicles on their 2 properties. So up at Martin Way and Carpenter Road, they have their firing range, which is east of our property, and then a subsequent property that currently holds their dumpsters. stores their dumpsters, and that property those two properties are the properties we're discussing. In order to use the upper property, we will have to move those dumpsters would have to be moved, and Thurston County has agreed to allow them to temporarily store those down at our lower site. So we're moving forward with those discussions and all of the details, more on that as that unfolds. We've also, in the last couple of weeks, as I mentioned, received guidance from the Department of Housing and Urban Development at the federal level regarding the point-in-time count census, which is an annual census we're required to do that our office either contracts out or hosts. So last year was our first time hosting it entirely in our office, and this year we're doing the same. We, within our office, have been meeting internally to discuss how we're going to move forward, and we've drafted a proposal of how we are thinking we might move forward with the point-in-time count, and that has been sent on. So we anticipate having a more thorough update of what that will look like in the next week or so. And really, that's about it. Everything's pretty much holding steady. The Hazardous Weather Task Force tracking sheet is fairly up to date right now in terms of utilization of our shelter beds, and actually our utilization is a little bit lower right now, which I think has a lot to do with the pandemic going on, and some shelters have higher barriers for people entering their shelter regarding COVID-19. And so I think that might be impairing some of the entry into the shelter beds. I'm going to be reaching out to the shelter providers today and just kind of getting a sense of what they think might be causing lower numbers besides COVID-19. And that's about it for me.
Before I turn it to my commissioners, my seatmates, I'd like to just point out for the public consumption, you said but the city, the RV campers, putting them out at the OPD firing range. And I want people to, they might think, why would you do that? But it's a former Olympia Police firing range. There's no firearms training going on in that building. It hasn't for a number of years now. So it's just an empty building. And no firearms in that building, no training, nothing like that. So, Commissioner Menser, questions of Keely or comments?
Point in time, you said that you sent it on. Does it need? Does our plan need approval by state or some other entity?
So short version of it is that any of the continuums of care or communities that feel like it's necessary for safety reasons can scale back their unsheltered count. That is determined by their continuum of care. We belong to the balance of state continuum of care. And so our continuum of care is Department of Commerce, and Department of Commerce has kind of left it in the hands of each individual county. The HUD is accepting requests for exemptions from in-person counts, if that's what each community chooses to do, up until nearly the day of the point-in-time count, to allow for maximum flexibility for each community as they grapple with how to do this count for 2021. So we're in good hand. We're in a good place. We just want to be really thoughtful. And I think we won't have any trouble if we chose to do a full count or if we chose to do a very scaled back count.
Okay.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir, I'm fine.
Okay, Romero?
No, nothing, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Keely, thank you very kindly.
Right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye. That takes us to a review of the BoCC draft agenda for this afternoon, December 1st, 2020. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock with the Pledge of Allegiance being led by Vice Chair Commissioner Menser, and then we'll have an approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes from last week, and then an opportunity for the public to address the board. Do you have any ideas, or have you heard anything, Romero, that might come up?
Yeah, you have been receiving public testimony, which I'm going to be responding to one of those this afternoon, and again from Mr. Terry Ballard, related to Ms. Carolina Mejia. So I will be responding this afternoon to his comments he provided to you last week. I would assume he's going to come and provide similar testimony this afternoon. You also may receive public testimony related to the budget. And later on your agenda, on the public testimony, I'd like to address a letter that you received from Mr. Pettit And that might be probably the gist of the public testimony you may receive this afternoon. And also I have some suggestions for you as well to address that letter.
Over the years, I've come into contact with numerous people with whom you can't change their mind and they're not capable of changing the subject. And it gets tiresome. But that doesn't define other people, it defines themselves. So with that, we have several public hearings coming up. Maybe some people coming in to testify or at least make public comment regarding the numerous public hearings, whatever issue excites them or they have import with. Then there's the county manager's update. You kind of covered that. Do you have any more business regarding that agenda item?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we move into agenda item number 3, and that's consent items, A through D. And A is central services, source purchase.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. You reviewed this item last week, and for your considerations to approve a sole source purchase. In this case, where we Central Services requesting approval to purchase a combined hardware software upgrade to the Thurston County Striper data logger. The Striper vehicle is the vehicle the Public Works use it to paint all the roadways in the county, and as well as we provide services to some of the cities as well. So in this particular case, it is a very specific type of software and hardware that we need to upgrade since the current system is already reached their useful life. And again, the department is requesting for you to consider sole source. The internal auditor has looked into this particular sole source requirements and has agreed. And this cost is $26,998.92 after taxes. And this will be covered by the ER&R funds.
Okay. Any questions on that?
And I believe Bruce Rombach is here if you have any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Mensah or Edwards, any questions on that?
No, sir.
No. Okay. 3B, Human Resources, Board of Equalization's request to convene.
You also reviewed this item last week, Commissioner Sander. Pursuant RCW 8448.010, the Board of Equalization, with the authorization of the County Legislative Authority, may convene at any time when petitions exceeds 25 or 10% of the number of appeals filed in the preceding year, whichever is greater. So the Board of Equalization is the board that hears all the appeals related to the assessment on their property taxes. Just to give you an example, so far in 2020, we have received 470 requests, and that exceeds the 10% of the number of petitions, which we had in 2019, 590. So with this option for your consideration allows the Board of Equalization to meet as they see fit to meet the demands of the filings on the hearings they conduct. You asked the question whether this is going to be covered on the budget, and you heard from Ruth Elder that is going to be able to cover within the allocated budget. Their compensation is based on a per diem basis, based on the days they have actually worked conducting those hearings.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
No.
I have a question. Just if less than 10% of folks appeal, is that, am I understanding your explanation correct? Then what happens? We don't convene the Board of Equalization. So
they convene on the regular basis. So this particular action allows them to convene more than just on the allotted schedule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, that's not clear from here. Okay, got it.
All right. So 3C is transferring, this is the Sheriff's Office, transferring Darrow, the soon to be retired K-9, to the handler.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item on December 31st, 2020. K-9 Darrow will be retiring from official duty in the Sheriff's Office as a K-9 officer. Deputy Shunkle, who is the current Sheriff Deputy who is the handler of Darrow, and he is willing to take ownership after his retirement. Darrow was acquired on August 2014, and is currently an 8.5-year-old Belgian Maloney's German Shepherd. So during Darrow's career, he and Deputy Schenkel have had 419 deployments together. That would be responses. And the team assisted in the capture, arrest, or identification of 206 suspects for a total of 491 related crimes. K9 Darrow has also located more than 178 items of evidence during his career. And the Sheriff's Office requested for him to authorization for him to sign the ownership of Darrow and his retirement to Deputy Schenkel and his family.
Any questions regarding that? Gary,
No, sir.
Okay, 3D is the financial services voucher list, and I trust we've all been through those and looked through them. Department item number 4 is 4A, Juvenile Court Parent Pay Program and Guardian Ad Litem Program, Bad Debt.
Yes, there's a couple items for your consideration, Commissioners. In terms of a little bit of a background, back in 2018, the Board of County Commissioners wrote off $1,091,000 related to uncollectible debt related to the Parent Pay Program, who is currently managed by Juvenile Court. That particular program was retired in May 2020. So since the board retired that debt and until the time the program was shut down, there's continued to accumulate this uncollectible debt. So this particular items for you to consider retiring $51,373.10 related to this program. In addition to that, Juvenile Court administers the Guardian Ad Litem Program, where individuals appointed by the court to represent the best interests of a child or incapacitated person in case of the Superior Court. There's unpaid fees also associated with this program. And for your considerations, also to retire $15,260 from the Guardian Ad Litem Program. So this, it really is, it was a strategic move by the Board of County Commissioners and directing the staff and the FMC, the Financial Management Committee, to develop a policy as to how we need to start retiring the uncollected debt on a yearly basis, so it doesn't feel that we have to retire a large amount, such as the one in 2018 of over $1 million. So, and again, this is just following the Thurston County Financial Policies and Procedures number 3055, and every so often we'll bring for your consideration, for you to consider retiring uncollectible debt. Uncollectible debt is just part of the business. It's when fines and fees are assigned to an individual and they cannot be collected, or that individual cannot pay. We hire a collection agency. Even after that, those debts become uncollectible, and as a result, we need to retire those every so often. And Robin is here to answer any questions.
Hi, any questions of Robin? Gary?
Yes, sir, I do. Is there any way, we're dealing with uncollected dollar amounts here, just so we have some sense of the success of the program, is there any chance that we could get the dollar amounts that were collected? Because at some point, it might not be worth doing all this, all these gyrations around this if we aren't getting anything back, and I don't know the answer to that. I have been asked what type of collections are we making on these, if any?
So I can get that information for you, Commissioner. I would say that at this point, Juvenile Court has ended the Parent Pay Program because it was not considered to be an effective program. And I'm not sure how much we collect from the Guardian Ad Litem Program. I'll have to look.
Okay, just a follow up to that then. So next year, it's just going to be a budgeted expenditure in the budget. We won't even have to think about writing off bad debt and such if we aren't making any assessment, which is then not collected because we didn't make the assessment. So you see where I'm going with that?
Yes, I do. Eventually, we will have written off all of the debt for the parent pay program. There are accounting rules about writing off bad debt. You have to wait so long. You have to make certain efforts to collect it before you can write it off. So I'm not sure if this $51,000 is the total amount. Again, I can check that, but the Guardian Ad Litem program, you will probably see an amount for that on an ongoing basis because that's not a program that we would be ending.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, will you suggest to start, hold this item until you get those questions?
No, I'm not. I do remember when we first started dealing with this, I think we wrote off about $1 million at some point. And I'm trying to figure out when we can get this off the book somehow. It's a lot of extra work for a lot of people, I'm sure, and just trying to save some motion there in government if possible.
Right.
So
we're working at writing off whatever remains with the parent pay program. And again, the court has ended that program because it is not effective.
okay.
It was not effective.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robin. Agenda item number 5, we're going to CPED, South Sound Green interlocal agreement.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item, Commissioner, and for you to consider approving the South Sound Green interlocal agreement with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, as well as with the Thurston Conservation District for $14,400 annually. The $14,400 will come from the stormwater utility. As a matter of background, the South Sound Green is housed within the Thurston Conservation District as part of their program, one of their programs, and it provides assistance to teachers and students related to stormwater and watershed education. And also, this is supports for us to meet the requirements for the municipal NPDES permit. That is the stormwater permit that allows to conduct business in terms of the stormwater. Also, in the last 5 years, at least in the last 5 years that we have exercised this program, we have engaged over 3,500 students and 148 teachers in stormwater and watershed education activities. This is just the numbers of the last 5 years. This program has been in place for the last, I believe, 10 years. You asked a couple of questions related to the $14,400 is adequate, and you heard from Anne Marie Pierce that at this point is adequate to continue the efforts of this program. And she's available right now if you have any additional questions related to this request.
Okay, commissioners, any questions, Gary?
No, sir.
Ty? Me neither. Thank you, Anne Marie. Takes us to 5B, an ILA, an agreement with the Recreation Conservation Office, the RCO.
This is a request for you to consider approving an interagency agreement with the Recreation and Conservation Office, also known as RCO. And this is for the amount of $28,000 the RCO will pay for county staff to participate as part of the Technical Advisory Committee of the Chehalis Basin. And I believe this is a great acknowledgement by the expertise the Thurston County staff has and brings to any type of decisions the RCO makes. And again, this is to receive money up to $28,000 for us to provide technical expertise related to the flooding, aquatic habitat, and protection in the Chehalis Basin. And I believe Jennifer Davis is here to answer any questions you may have.
Jennifer, anything to add?
No, that summarizes it well. Thank you.
Okay. Ty, any questions or comments? Nope. Gary?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Takes us to emergency services, agenda item number 6, emergency management performance grant.
This is a request for you to consider accepting the emergency management performance grant. And again, this is a yearly allocation that we receive. In this case, it's for $127,814. This particular grant funds 1.15 full-time employees in the emergency management for public education. It relates to people sheltering, animal sheltering, unmet needs for disaster survivors, support for the Disaster Assistance Council, in coordination with public health, external affairs, mass housing and feeding, all related to the emergency response. This federal grant requires a 50% county match, and this has been already included on the proposed 2021 budget as a base budget. And again, since this is a yearly allocation from the federal government, we have already added the match on the proposed 2021 budget. If you have any questions, the Director of Emergency Services is here, Kurt Harding, to answer any questions you may have.
Good morning, Kurt. Do you have anything to supplement that with?
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harding, Director of Emergency Services. No, I have nothing further to add. Memorial did a great job of summarizing the contract.
Thank you. Ty, any questions for Kurt? Gary?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Agenda item number 7, Public Health and Social Services, the Emergency Solutions Grant, COVID contract.
Yeah, let me take you back to just November 3rd, 2020, when the Board of County Commissioners approved a contract amendment with Washington State Department of Commerce to receive additional funding for the Emergency Solutions, the COVID program, which equated a total of $3,882,592. So the next step is to award those dollars to the organizations that will provide the services that meets the criteria of families and homeless to receive assistance during this pandemic. The proposed contract is an addition to the already existing contracts, and this is one for the Community Action Council for Lewis, Mason, and Thurston counties for rental assistance, a total of $600,000. Community Youth Services for the Rosie's Place, $116,000. City of Olympia for hygiene services, $73,000, and some dollars. I'm just giving you round numbers, by the way. The Family Support Center of South Sound for the shelter hotel vouchers, $343,000. Interfaith Works for the First Christian Emergency Shelter, $425,000. Interfaith Works for the 344 Martin Way Shelter for $795,000. Partners in Prevention Education, Shelter in Place, $119,000. And to Safe Place for the shelter hotel vouchers for $103,255. That totals of $2,577,286, and that is out of the $3,882,000 total contract. So Tom Webster is here to answer any questions or provide additional information.
Good morning, Tom. Let's see if there's any questions for you. Gary?
No, sir.
Ty? Me neither. You skated. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
7B, amendment number 3 to the Lewis County contract for the Nurse Family Partnership.
Yeah, you saw this item back in November 10, 2020 as the Board of Health. And this is to approve an amendment number 3 to the ongoing Lewis contracts to provide the Nurse Family Partnership services. Although they took an affirmative action to approve this contract as a Board of Health, the Board of County Commissioners need to take a follow-up action to affirm the terms of this contract, since it is an interlocal agreement, interagency agreement. So the partnership with Lewis County will service 50 clients, and the cost is to amend the contracts from December 31st through December 31st, 2021. And it will be an additional amount of $309,822. And Shelley's here, I believe, to answer any questions on behalf of Gretchen.
Thank you, Romero. Ty, any questions of Shelley?
No, we've gone through this one. Thank you.
Okay. Gary?
No, sir.
No, okay, take care of that. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Public Works, agenda item number 8, resolution calling for sealed bids.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, this is an item for you to authorize the Department of Public Works to issue sealed bids to secure the services to replace the existing flare system that we have on the Waste and the Recovery Center in Hawkesbury area. As you know, we manage a closed landfill, and as a result of managing the closed landfill, we have methane that is released from this retired landfill. The current flare systems are no longer adequate, have reached their useful life because the quality of the methane is not adequate to continue to burn at that rate, so we need to replace those flares. Last week, you asked I believe Commissioner Edwards asked the question whether we can do anything that we can do to enhance the quality of the methane, that we can probably have somewhat of a commercial application. Unfortunately, that is not the case because the landfill has been closed for quite some time, and again, the quality of the methane is not adequate. So this particular proposal is to secure go out to bid and secure the services of a contractor to replace the existing flare system. I believe they have 2 right now. And the projected cost will vary between $750,000 to $970,000, and that will be covered by the solid waste fund, which is paid by the tipping fees. Greg Thomas is here to answer any questions.
Any questions of Rick? Ty?
No.
Gary?
No, sir.
Yep, nor do I. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
That takes us to number 9 on the agenda, the Sheriff's Office sole source purchase from Lexipol.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item. I'm sorry.
I'm saying 9A and 9B. Go ahead.
So you also reviewed this item. This is a request from the Sheriff's Office for a sole source purchase. In this case, it's for the Lexipol application, which allows to maintain a policy manual, research proposed legislation, research newly adopted legislation, and locate and implement training guidance for law changes. As we go through the sole source purchase, this has to be agreed upon or reviewed by the internal auditor, Brandon Webster. He has provided his review. In fact, this meets the intent of a sole source. Also, this application has been reviewed by the IT subcommittee, and they're also recommending approval. The cost of this purchase is $35,386.52, and I believe the Sheriff's Office is in the position to cover those costs. And the Sheriff Brady is here. I believe he answered some questions you had last week, but also I believe he's available today. Let me see. Yeah, he's here.
Well, welcome, Under Sheriff. Turn to Gary. Do you have any questions?
No, sir, I do not.
Kai?
Good to go.
Good. Thank you. And that's 9A and 9B.
Yeah, similar to the previous item, this is another sole source request, and this is to purchase a software for $9,826. And the name of this software is the Power DMS. And this allows the document management, training management, and accreditation management done electronically. The internal auditor has reviewed this request and agrees that it's a sole source. And also the IT subcommittee has also recommended the board to consider approval.
Okay. Ty, any questions on this one? Of the Under Sheriff? Gary?
No, sir.
Me neither. Thank you, Under Sheriff.
Thank you.
And then we get to agenda item number 10, which is wrapping it up. We report back on our board and work sessions and committees, and then the county manager, Romero, will go through our week schedule. Then we adjourn, but then we go right into several public hearings at 3 o'clock or thereabouts. And the first one is telecommunications franchise agreement with Astound Broadband.
Yeah, Commissioners, you will be receiving public testimony related to an application that we have received from Astound franchise for a franchise application to operate within the counties right away. One of the first steps in the process is for you to hold a public hearing before accepting the application. Soon after that is completed, for your considerations, for you to approve the application and direct the staff to start working on the contractual aspects of the franchise itself. And following will be another action that you may want to take, accepting the franchise agreement itself. Patty Rossetto is here to answer any questions related to this public hearing this afternoon.
Gary or Ty, any questions on this public hearing topic?
No, sir.
No, not me either. Thanks, Patty. The second public hearing is a renewal of interim emergency housing ordinance 15792.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is for your consideration to take a public, take public testimony before you considering extending the emergency housing ordinance 15902. And this will extend from December 9th, 2020 to June 9th, 2020. So there is a little bit of a change that I will be introducing, somewhat of an amendment this afternoon for your consideration. And the amendment is considering the recent events related to RV parking and RV itself. Then the proposed amendments for you to consider additional waivers to allow heating and cooking appliances that are commonly integrated in the RV. That is the only addition that I will introduce this afternoon for your consideration. And I'd just like to give you a heads up that will be part of your decision-making process. Leah Davis is here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for joining us, Leah. Gary, do you have any questions?
Yes, the only question that I would have on this is, has this emergency ordinance been utilized or used for any activity?
It is my understanding there are, Leah Davis, CPED, I apologize, Community Planning. It's my understanding that there are no permitted emergency housing encampments in Thurston County.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ty?
No, okay.
All right, thank you, Leah, very much.
I have one more thing I'd like to add. The action item on the agenda has a small error. And it says that it would be renewed December 9th, 2020 to June 9th, 2020. And it should
thank
June
you.
9th, 2021. My apologies.
Good catch. Good catch, Leah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
3C, or not 3C, the other 3 o'clock public hearing is Housing and Urban Development, the 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Yeah, for you will be receiving public testimony this afternoon related to the 2019 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, also known as CAPER, for Thurston County. And this is the annual summary explaining how we have utilized federal money related to the Community Development Grant, Block Grant, also known as the CDBG, as well as the home dollars that we receive. And this is required for you to hold a public hearing on this report before we submit it to HUD, I believe. And Jacinda and Tom are here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for joining us. Gary, any questions on this?
No, sir.
Ty, anything on this public hearing? No, nor do I. Thank you both for joining us.
Yeah, and Commissioners, in the last 3 public hearings that I just highlighted for your consideration is for you to take an affirmative action depending on the public testimony that you might receive. You don't have to, but it certainly is for you to consider as an option.
All right, thank you, sir. That takes us to 5:30's public hearing, and this is CPED again, and this is the CP-11 Recycle Asphalt Policy Amendment public hearing.
Well, I think we need to gear up to have a very robust public hearing this afternoon related to this item. And this is particularly related to the recycle asphalt policy amendment. And that is an item CP11 of the 2020-2021 official comprehensive docket the Board of County Commissioners approved earlier this year. We have come to this point, and the Planning Commission has reviewed this item and has submitted for your consideration, I believe. So we have received many written testimony so far. So I would assume they will be receiving significant verbal testimony as well. So Maya Tipo is the planner who's managing this particular item. She will frame this conversation this afternoon, and she's also available this morning to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, this is a big one. Maya, thank you for joining us. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just one thing, Commissioners. Thank you, Ramiro. Maya Tipo, Senior Planner with CPED. The only thing I'd like to add is that we are not asking the board make a decision after this public hearing. We have a board briefing scheduled for tomorrow to continue the discussion.
And then this decision comes up, is it on the 15th?
If the board would like to take action this year, the final day to take action would be on December 15th.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Menser, questions or comments?
I have received numerous correspondence kind of ad hoc, and I've been collecting them, but is there a point where we're going to get a comprehensive spreadsheet or packet, because one of the citizens made reference to a letter and comments, and that was definitely one I hadn't seen. So I know there's stuff out there I haven't gotten yet, and I'm wondering when we're going to get that.
Yes, thank you. I will send over all of the written comments that we have received for the life of the project, including all of the new comments for the board's public hearing this afternoon. That'll go over at 4 p.m.
Commissioner Edwards, questions or comments?
I guess just one follow-up on Maya's comment. For the life of the project, starting when?
Starting in 2017, after the project was officially docketed by the board at that time.
Okay, thank you.
And when you do a summary of the public comment that you've received, it would be helpful for me. This is regarding the amendment format, and some people have taken the position of permitting. Some have taken the position of groundwater. Some have included Holroyd. Some have included blah blah blah. Are you going to break it out into all those types of issues, or are you going to keep it regarding public comment to the issue that we're dealing with, which is the amendment?
I have broken it out for tonight. I'm preparing to organize it by those that are in support of the amendment and those that are against the proposed amendment. There have been comments that have referenced specific permit action, which is not under the board's consideration at this time. But I will go through the themes as they've been mentioned. However, there's been many different comments that mentioned many different themes, so I don't have percentages associated with each of the themes at this time. Just support or against for the policy amendment.
And it seems to me the majority of comment that I'm receiving, emails and voicemails and interviews, not interviews, but discussions with folks, are the people that are against the amendment cite all these other issues that aren't before the board as to don't approve it because of all these other things. And so that helps me kind of frame it, keeping them separate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you. Romero, do you have anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Maya. We'll see you this evening. That concludes today's BoCC agenda and public hearings. And now we're going to jump into Monday, December 7th, because the BoCC meeting for December 8th has been canceled. So we're going to look at December 7th.
Yeah, we'll look at December 7th and December 8th, if I may.
December 8th, right. So it's a whole slew of public hearings. And the first one on Monday, December 7th, starts at 1:30, and this is regarding Law and Justice Clerk's Office.
Yeah, so we have engineered the process in a way that we're going to be addressing individual portions of the budget by offices and departments, and at the end of each day, we'll give an overall opportunity for the public to provide comments related to that. So at 1:30, You will hold a public hearing related to mainly law and justice, which includes the clerk's office, district court, prosecuting attorney's office, sheriff's office, coroner, superior court, and juvenile courts, as well as the public defense and pretrial services. At 4 in the afternoon, you'll hold a public hearing related to general government, which includes the assessor's office, auditor's office, board of county commissioner's office, treasurer's office, human resources, central services, and information technology. And at 6 in the afternoon, you have an overall public hearing, again, to give the public another opportunity to provide comments related to the law and justice in general government. Moving on to December 8th, 2020. At 1:30, you hold public hearings related to the...
Hey, Romero, let me just ask, pause, and since this is for December 7th, the 3 in the afternoon, do commissioners have any questions or comments on these three?
Sorry.
That's all right. Nope. Okay, Robin?
Robin likes to add something, sorry.
I would just clarify that the evening hearings on both days are open for to receive public comment on any office and department, not just the ones that we heard on that day.
So we'll change the description then. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah.
Gary, did you have something?
No, sir.
Okay. And I just want to add the 6 p.m. Monday night public hearing. I'm glad the Seahawks got their Monday Night Football already taken care of. So there's no conflict. We'll have a heap of people here, I'm sure. Nothing, Ty? Okay. Go ahead, Romero, for December 8th.
December 8th at 1:30, you will receive public testimony related to transportation, environment and land use, public works, community plan, economic development. 4 in the afternoon, you will have related to public hearing on health and human services, public health and human services, and emergency services. And at 6 o'clock, it will be another opportunity to provide the public comments to you on all the aspects of the budget, as Robin has stated. Related to the public testimony, you received a letter from a citizen, Mr. Pettit, yesterday that I would like to address later on in your agenda.
Okay. Any questions or comments on those, gentlemen? No? Okay. Then proclamations and awards. Oh, Amy Davis, I didn't introduce her. Look at the board.
Good morning, Commissioners. There are no proclamations or awards.
Advisory boards and commissions.
There is one application included in your packet this morning. It is from Satpol Soal, owner of the La Quinta Tumwater location, for the vacant position 5 seat, which is a 3-year term for the Hotel Motel Commission from January 2021 to January 2024. Just a reminder, it is the owner who applies and is appointed, not the business.
Right. Any questions or comments, commissioners, on this?
Not at this time.
Satpol sat on the VCB, and so we met doing the TPA meetings. And the smart person, yeah, I support that. But we'll give it some time to sink in. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
PIO check-in. I see Brian Dominique is in this morning, not Megan.
Nope, it's Megan.
Megan.
Oh, yay, both, okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Just a reminder that this week, IT will be implementing a new check-in system for Building 1. So people visiting this building will be able to check in either from home or when they get there and get in line virtually. This will be notified via their cell phone when it's their turn to come in. It's going to minimize the number of people in our lobby and make it more convenient for those coming to the building. The system will be rolled out to other buildings in the coming weeks. And then Brian is working on a summary of communications activities for the year, and we're really excited to present that to you in the next couple weeks. We've been super busy this year, and it's just kind of nice to see all the achievements on paper. So we're excited to get that to you so you can see it as well. And then I'm going to be sitting in on an interview panel next Monday for the PIO for Public Health. This is to fill their 3/4 time PIO that supports the department, and it's been vacant since early June. So we're excited to get those interviews done and get somebody in that position to help support that department. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
I have one off the top of my head, as you brought it up, the customer check-in system that's going to be installed. Will that help facilitate public hearings with people coming in for public hearings?
No, because it's not going to be a requirement for people to check in to come to the commissioner's office.
Okay.
So it's not going to help facilitate the public hearings at all.
Okay, just a thought. Ty, any questions with Megan?
Megan, where did we leave our project related to the overhaul of the website for the county?
That was taken off of the list of items to do at this point when the budget was in question as to if there would be funding for it. So I'm hopeful that next year we'll be able to readdress that and maybe get started on that project again.
Had a vendor or whatever you call it, consultant, whatever it's called, been selected?
We had an apparent successful vendor and we were in the negotiation process, but no contract had been signed.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, any questions with Megan?
No, sir.
Just a comment, Megan, I think it's so ironic that for a couple of years, we've been pushing for new microphones in the boardroom. And for about the last year now, we've been relegated to computers and personal mics.
Yep.
Doggone it. Oh, well.
Oh,
Thank
well.
you so much.
Thank you.
Legislative update, Ramiro.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. I will be reaching out to your individual calendars. So I'm going to be scheduling appointments, Zoom appointments with some of the local legislative delegation to start introducing our legislative agenda. So I have developed a strategy with Deborah Manguia as to who each commissioner should be put in each one of those, just to make sure. Since this is going to be held in December, we're not going to be crossing the line, the full PMA. And that would be a good piece of information for Commissioner-elect Mejia to be part of that process as well. So keep that in mind. I will reach out and I will ask for you to be flexible on your calendars because some of the representatives and senators may not be, their schedule may be tight as we come along. Also, this morning, I was able to participate on the Senate Committee for Local Government. That was a great opportunity, at least from my point of view, to present some of the challenges the county government has related to the budget as a result of responding to the COVID-19 emergency. So I appreciate the opportunity, which was coordinated by WASAC.
I would add great minds think alike because as soon as you brought up the legislative agenda, the Zoom meetings, I wrote down Commissioner-elect if you're going to include Carolina Mejia. So thank you for mentioning that. It's got to be done. Questions, comments, commissioners on this?
No, sir.
Okay. Briefings, public hearing decisions pending.
None at this point.
Okay. Hey, now we're getting to the commissioner items. Yeah,
Yes.
looks like we have sufficient time for this. First is Lower Eld Inlet Conservation Agreement.
This is just to give you a heads up that I will be circulating a conservation agreement for your signature. And this is related, this project was awarded funding during the 2020 Conservation Futures Funding Round. It is sponsored by Capital Land Trust. And the overall project is planning to acquire 55 acres of marine shoreline habitat in uplands. This is located on the Lower Eld Inlet near to Ellison Springs. And the conservation futures participates in this funding. The overall acquisition cost is $415,500, and conservation future grants supported $75,000 out of that. And again, you already took an action to award this particular funding to this purchase, and this just want to make you aware that I will be circulating the agreement for your signature to execute the grant acquisition as well. And Andy DeFoe is the one who manages this particular program, and he's here to answer any questions.
And that's what this is. This agreement is.
Yeah.
Okay. Andy, do you have anything to add? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Andy DeFoe, Community Planning. I do not have anything to add. This is a standard part of the process, and I think Ramiro summed it up well.
Okay. Ty, anything?
Is this the document in our packet, Ramiro? You said you were going to circulate it, but we have something.
Yeah, it is just to give you a heads up, but I will be circulating this for your signature eventually. Yeah, just to give a heads up. Yeah.
Just so I understand what this does, is that this is not just awarding the, what is this exactly doing, this agreement?
So the conservation agreement outlines essentially the purposes of providing the Conservation Futures Award. So it details the conservation values that the property has. It states that in light of those conservation values and the overall goals of the Conservation Futures Program, that money's being provided. It also sets the expectation on uses on the property and gives the county the ability to ensure that the property is being used for its conservation purposes. So whatever those purposes might be, if it's simply to be in preservation or a restoration site, or maybe there's some public access, this is the document that outlines all of the expected activities on the property and gives us the ability to protect that investment that the county has made.
Perfect, thank you, I understand.
Gary, any questions?
No, sir.
Andy, are these 8 parcels, is that where those iron statues are of the big bull and whatnot?
It's very close to that. Yes, it's down in that area. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's it. Next is emergency housing ordinance.
Yeah, I already briefly addressed this while you were reviewing the public hearing item this afternoon. And again, for your consideration, I will be introducing an amendment to the current emergency ordinance to include additional waivers to allow heating and cooking appliances that are commonly integrated in RVs recreational vehicles. And that will be the only additional piece that I will be introducing this afternoon for your consideration before taking a final action.
Okay. Gary, any questions on that?
Yes, I have one. If we're going to make a change in this, and I don't know if you would call this the preamble or not, right under where it's got ordinance number on the front page, I would like to make sure that this says regulations for emergency homeless encampments in unincorporated Thurston County by amending the Thurston County Code. Unless I don't see that it says that anywhere in here, and that makes it pretty self-explanatory to the public about what action we're taking.
We can certainly clarify that on the motion. It is inherent because the county doesn't have any jurisdiction over cities, but certainly we can emphasize that, Commissioner.
Well, there's so many things. All the cities are they are all located in Thurston County, and so that's just a point I'm bringing up. I don't know where my seatmates might be on it. But.
Yeah, we can certainly clarify that. Maybe I can work with Leah and revising that motion to clarify that, as well as changing the date that she suggested earlier.
Well, I see it says in that in the opening, amending Thurston County Code, and our Thurston County Code doesn't apply to this. But I'm not opposed to putting anything in, but it makes sense to me. But if you want to add some language or verbiage, that's fine. Ty, any questions or comments on that?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll revise the language to include that.
Okay. And then run it by Travis again?
Come again?
Morning. Leah, Dave, could I address that section of code?
Yeah, let me just for a moment. If we're going to change the wording, though, I would have it run by legal again.
It has been run by them. I've got a signed copy of that version of the code if we go down that road today.
Good. That's what I'm saying. If we amend it, if we change it, just have Travis do it again.
Yes, and it includes the rural county as well as the UGAs, and that's how the language reads.
Okay.
Is that satisfactory to you?
Sure, that's okay. I didn't see it in here when I went over it, that's all.
But we can emphasize that on the actual motion.
I'm fine.
Yeah, we'll make sure that it's correct at that time.
Yeah, thank you.
Good, thank you, Leah.
Yeah, thank you.
And now we're to public testimony.
Yes, I'd like to address a letter that you received from Mr. Pettit, I believe yesterday. And this is related to the upcoming public hearing associated with the 2021 budget. The process that we have implemented in the past is we have given every citizens who would like to provide testimony 3 minutes. And within those 3 minutes, they are in the position to ask any questions. And that's what we have made the representatives from the offices and departments to be ready to answer those questions if need be. Mr. Pitt in this letter, and I'm just going to make my words in gist, he is requesting that perhaps to give the opportunity for him to exercise in a debate based on the questions that he receives from the offices and departments. He would like to have a counter conversation and ask additional questions. So from that perspective, you know, I don't believe that the gist of the public comment is to exercise a debate. I think we are required to hear what the public has to provide in terms of the proposed budget, and we are required to answer any questions that citizens may be submitting as a result of that. However, I do feel that perhaps for your consideration may be something you may want to consider. If a citizen, given the 3 minutes, asks any questions, and the office and departments provide the answer after the 3 minutes, the board may consider giving the citizen an additional 2 minutes to have a closing comment related to the answers they have received. That would be my proposal to you to address some of the concerns that he has highlighted, Mr. Pettit has highlighted in his letter.
And then after a 2-minute follow-up questions or rebuttal, then that time, that individual will be done.
Yes, that will be my proposal for you.
I know what I think, but let me turn to my seatmates. Ty?
I've only been through this once, and I'm trying to remember the dynamic last year. It was, if I remember right, there was, so the 3 minutes, they ask a question, and then the answer doesn't count against their time, right?
No, it doesn't count against their time, no.
So they can ask 100 questions if they want, if they're concise, because if all they do is ask a question, and they get 3 minutes worth of question asking, that can be that can be a lot of questions if they're concise and focused in what they're asking. Is my memory accurate?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
So what would be the point of giving them 2 additional minutes to rebut the answers? They can, you mean if they want to give a comment with respect to the answers, like use their 3 minutes for questioning and then give 2 minutes of opinion about the answers they heard? Is that what you're kind of proposing, Ramiro?
Yeah, on point. That's my proposal.
Okay. Well, I understand your proposal. Let me think about it for a minute. I'll let Commissioner Edwards go.
Go ahead, Gary.
Is this my understanding that then a citizen, the way it is right now, on a $300 million budget gets 3 minutes in front of the podium here to ask questions, and that's it? Is that the way it works? Is that what we're proposing?
That's how the board has stated.
And then it's cut off? Is each elected official going to be here able to respond to those individuals' questions at the time they're asked?
Yeah, that's the expectation.
That is the law.
Yeah, but there's no time limit, and there's no time limit designated in the law that I saw that was provided by Mr. Pettit as far as time, is there?
That is absolutely true. There is not a time stated in the law. There is the allowance for a citizen to ask questions. And the way that this works it was a little different last year for the midterm, but for the budget for the upcoming year, I will make a very short statement about the particular office, and then the citizen will have 3 minutes to ask questions about that specific office. And then they'll have, so for example, they'll have 3 minutes to ask questions about Superior Court budget, and they'll have 3 minutes to ask questions about the juvenile court budget, and 3 minutes for the sheriff's budget, and so on.
Okay, then, but like Commissioner Menser said, for each one of those 3-minute periods, they're not going to get charged by the answer that's given by one of those entities.
No, sir.
And so they'll be able to ask, I don't know, 10 questions or something, I suppose. I just want to make sure that the citizens have adequate time. And that does sound like we're given adequate time if we do that. And I'm not against the 2 minutes. Add it on if that's worthwhile. I just want to, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money and a lot of concern, and I just want to make sure the public does have adequate time to address that. And 5 minutes doesn't seem unreasonable at all to me, so I'm okay with that.
I would proffer that, yes, it is a lot of money. And if a citizen was limited to 3 minutes or even 5 minutes, that's not reasonable. The however is, I would bet there's an individual that's had well in excess of 3 minutes over the last year at every meeting. There have been numerous emails with documents being provided, hard copy and emails. And so no one's being relegated to just 3 minutes or 5 minutes at the end of the year regarding this magnanimous budget. They've had sufficient time in public hearings and sufficient input to make comment and ask questions that have been answered throughout the year, throughout the last 6 months, throughout the last quarter. So I don't see it as, oh my gosh, it's over $300 million budget and someone can only have 3 minutes or 5 minutes. That's not accurate. They've had sufficient time to go over this, and it's been posted for considerable time. So we still need to run an organized, orderly meeting and not be here for hours and not expect staff, or whether it be staff or elected officials, to be here sitting in for hours. And so what I remember last year, it was a point counterpoint. Someone would ask a question, and it even came to, it just got to be a little bit contentious a bit, and it got people under the gun, and then someone had to start the clock and stop the clock, and then when's it start again, and then stop it again. And it just, that was cumbersome, and I didn't think it was meaningful. And to be point counterpoint debating like that, in a typical debate style, I don't think it's productive, especially when people, professional folks that work in these offices and departments aren't debaters and aren't public speakers per se, and it's televised and there's a microphone. And I don't think it's fair to put someone like that under the gun. So if there's sufficient questions being asked in a 3-minute period, they can make comment, ask a couple questions, then get an answer. If you want to give them 2 extra minutes, that's okay with me. I just don't want it to turn into a debate and someone with a stronger personality, whomever he or she might be, taking advantage of the situation and have staff or even electeds walk away feeling devalued or beaten up. And that's just the way, that's just reality of it. I'll be very blunt about that. So if my seatmates want to do that 3 and 2, as long as we set rules that we can inform the public, these are the guidelines that we're going to use, then we can manage those expectations.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. That's exactly the proposal before you, is to allow 3 minutes for the citizens to provide comments and ask any questions. And then it will be no limit by the Office of Departments and head of the offices and departments to provide answers to those questions uninterrupted. And after those answers have been provided, then the citizen will have 2 minutes to add additional follow-up comments.
So this will all be on Zoom. And will the Zoom accommodate everybody that needs to be, to include, we have no idea how many public?
Capacity is not an issue.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so then 3 and 2.
Robin, I'd like to add.
I had on a same subject, but somewhat different angle. So not regarding the public testimony.
Okay. Can you hold on to that then?
Yeah.
Okay. Ty, looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that last year, so what I remember about last year is that the different elected officials, they only had one, we're listening to everything. They've got their own piece, and they tended to give, if I remember correctly, they tended to give long-winded answers because they wanted to, you know, they have a lot of knowledge and they wanted to answer the citizens' questions. So, you know, the questions, I remember some very extended answers. And so if you start adding this up, I'm not opposing what we're proposing, but if you just start thinking about 3 minutes worth of questions could yield 15 minutes worth of answers from the elected official. And that's per citizen, per department. If you look at the first one, there's 9 different budgets there that we're going to be covering. So if you had 10 citizens that wanted to pipe up on 9 different budgets, and you know, and you add up those minutes, it could be unwieldy, but I don't necessarily think it will be, just given the numbers and the difference. You know, a lot. Obviously, there's hot button budgets and other ones maybe where there will be very little comment. So I think it's worth a try, but I do think that it's there's a chance that it could be a very unwieldy, depending on the elected officials, how much information they want to give. And I remember some ones last year that went back and forth. You know, if somebody really wants to be efficient and concise, 3 minutes could be 100 questions. And if the elected official is going to give a multiple minute answer to each of those, you can see that it could spiral totally out of control. But I'm willing to try.
Let me ask Romero, how many members of the public, and we have 285,000, how many members of the public want extra time or asking for additional time?
No, I'm just referring to the only letter that you received from Mr. Pettit.
Okay, and the reason I ask is I would imagine any citizen, whomever he or she may be, if they have questions, they could actually, you know what, I'm going to use my 3 minutes or 5 minutes optimally, and I'm going to submit my questions in writing so I can get specific answers. Then they can do that in advance. So they can have the information for the director or elected would have the information to bring in and give us a succinct answer, like Commissioner Mentor is saying.
Yeah, that's an option.
Ramble.
I'm sorry. That's an option that every citizen has. But we cannot force them to do that.
Oh, no.
Also, if a question has been asked at that time, and if an answer requires a research, we'll follow up, and either the head of the office or the department director will follow up at a later date to answer those questions.
Right, but to allow sufficient time for the research, to allow sufficient time to get the answer back to the individual asking the question, I would suggest anybody listening or involved in this that has that deep interest, which many do, submit your questions in advance. So it's prepared and you get the answer that you're looking for. But again, I'm not opposed to adding 2 minutes, because I don't think everybody's going to want to do that, but I can see where it could get time-wise out of control. Gary, anything?
No, I think we've covered it. I think Robin's laid it out pretty clear that each agency or elected official will be subjected to some questions, I guess, and I think it'll be okay. I'm kind of like I'm with Ty on this. It certainly could get out of control, but I don't know as it will. We could make rules. I mean, we could make adjustments. The board could, I guess, in the middle of the hearing, if that was to happen. I mean, we do things that, you know, for unusual circumstances. So I don't think it'll be a big issue.
And you may also consider encouraging the elected officials and department directors to be concise on their responses.
There you go.
Right. Yeah, we'd like to have that in the preamble of that meeting as well. But if I had legitimate questions outside of my role here as a citizen, which I assume will be, I would ask those questions in an email so I can get the proper answer. I wouldn't be waiting for a gotcha moment. Some people might want to be looking for that gotcha, and I want to avoid that, but it can't be avoided. All right, Robin, you had something else. Oh, go ahead, Ty.
I just want to say, if we may want to say up front, we're going to, you know, here's the format we propose, you know, with the extra 2 minutes. If we start to run long, we reserve the right to pull that, and then you could submit the 2 minutes of, you know, comment by email, whatever, let the citizen do it in writing. That way they get their full time to ask questions. And that way, as Commissioner Edwards said, we could make a judgment call based on how we're doing with the process. But letting people know up front that if it's just running out of control, we may make that adjustment.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Is related to time management, and
Right.
And since we have back-to-back public hearings, yeah, certainly that will be an option the chair may want to exercise at the beginning.
Okay. Thank you. Robin.
Okay, the other thing that we've been getting questions about is if the elected officials or department directors will have an opportunity to make comments regarding their own office or department budget. And in the past, we have not had them do that in the interest of time. The way this works is I say a very brief, super high level description of the office or department, say what their budget is, what the changes in the upcoming budget are, and then open it up to public comment. So the elected official or department director, their opportunity is they get a 3-minute like any other person would to comment on their own budget to the board. And my question is if you'd like to continue that practice or if you would like to do something other than that. But that's the way we've done it, again, in the interest of time management.
Have you been getting requests from electeds that they would like to speak?
Apparently someone has been asking, and I don't know who because the questions haven't come to me. But we have gotten questions on if the department directors or elected officials will have an opportunity. And I am concerned about opening it up because we could spend a whole lot of time with each one.
I understand that you've given it in the past, the overview and the high level overview, and that makes sense. It's reasonable. You can plan your event that way, your hearing. But if an elected, I think, I'm just off the top of my head, if an elected wanted to make a statement about his or her budget, I don't really have a problem with that. But it does, you're right, it does extend considerably the time. I don't know if we've had quite a few that say, you know what, I want my time in front of the camera. I want to explain stuff to the public. And I wouldn't want to stifle that, but
I don't want to stifle it either.
Right,
I have asked them to limit their comments to 3 minutes.
Yeah. Gary?
I'm all for allowing the elected officials to present their case, if you will, to the public, because this is one of the few times that they are in front of the board and the public is watching so that they can explain their situation. It might be unique for one reason or another that we don't even know about. So I would like to make sure that we respect each one of those either department directors or elected officials.
And that's where I stand, but I'm not even sure I would limit it to 3, but we can talk about that. Time?
I guess I would ask, Robin, is this because I've had several electeds and department directors reach out to me directly with their concerns. I understand being in a public forum is different, so maybe that's the situation. Is this a concern of a citizen that wants to hear that, or is it a concern of an actual, a department or elected head that wants that opportunity?
My impression from staff who have been contacted is that they're just asking if they're going to have an opportunity to speak to their own budgets.
They want to be prepared. That makes sense. Well, I don't have a problem. I'm with my teammates on that.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is about a time limit for them.
Are you in favor of giving them a 3-minute time? So we just keep things orderly and moving along?
3 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Opening it up.
What are you fine with, Gary?
I'm
5?
fine with whatever we've done in the past, the 3 minutes, that they can give an overview of their operation and why and that type of thing.
I mean, all of our hearings were, all of our hearings were YouTubed. If the public wants to hear why the auditor, what they want and what the we did comprehensive overview. Here's our challenges. Here's our needs. So I'm just picking on the auditor. Any of them are there to be watched. So this is really about, hey, you guys made some decisions, and here's why this isn't going to work very well for my group, and that should be a kind of targeted and able to be addressed in a 3-minute window.
Let me walk you through just to make sure that I understand the logistics of what you just decided today. So Robin will introduce the overall budgets for the specific office and departments. Then the board will give each office and departments, if they choose to, 3 minutes to elaborate on their budgets, if that is the case. Then we open up for a public hearing, particularly related to that particular piece of the budget. The citizen will have 3 minutes. At that point, the citizen could ask any questions it need be, and then the elected official will follow up with that response. There will be that response or responses will be within 5 minutes. That's my addition to that. And then after the 5 minutes responses, then the citizen will have 2 minutes follow-up comments to their responses.
Yes and no. The opening comment by the elected, they're not just a citizen, they're elected, and they have a major budget. And if he or she wants to lay it out, 3 minutes is awfully short. Many electeds can't introduce themselves in less than 3 minutes. So I would like to have, and 5 might be a bit lengthy. How about 4 minutes for their opening to explain their budget? 4 minutes.
Yeah, I was just outlining what I thought I've heard the board decided. So this is not my, so whatever you decide.
I understand. Are my seatmates okay with the 4 minute? Because 3 is awfully quick.
Let me just say, the electeds, I want to make sure the electeds have the ability to speak to the public.
Yes.
But they're also going to have the ability to speak to the public based on the question that they get asked. So I think they're going to have plenty of time to, they'll address the question and, for example, if I was able to do this or that, so they'll have an opportunity there without, I don't know if we need to put a big time, excessive time on it. I'm thinking
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
If we gave them 4 minutes, it's not mandatory you have to take it. It's
okay,
no more than
good
4.
enough. I'm fine with it.
Or up to 4. I don't know. What do you think, Ty? Thoughts?
I think we should just make it clear. I don't want it the impression to be that they have to present, that they're not doing their job if they don't give us a 4-minute spiel. Like, this is only optional if they want.
There you go.
If there's something they need to say. If they have something they need to say, they can take 4 minutes. That's fine.
That is a good point. It's just give an option to provide testimony. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely not expected that they have to do that.
Yeah.
Not mandatory.
So do you agree on 4 minutes or 3 minutes?
4 is fine with me.
Up to.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. I will get instructions out today.
Good luck with that. All right, thank you, Robin. Do you have anything else, Ramiro?
No, sir.
How about commissioner items? Ty, you have anything?
I just throw this out for just to put the seed out there that at the JASCOM meeting, we're working through our interlocal agreement, trying to, most of it's just cleanup, but there's 2 kind of meatier provisions that this board would have to kind of sign off on. One of them is to add a potential, it's optional, an optional extra seat. The JASCOM board could give a seat to a nonprofit organizational representative by vote of the board. And then, so I think that's kind of minor, but the big ticket item is the licensing fees. The proposal is to allow JASCOM to set those fees rather than having each jurisdiction have to adopt them separately with JASCOM's recommendation. And I think personally that makes sense, although there is the issue of should the county's fees be a little lower because we don't offer the full field service? And that's a debate that we could have, but that wouldn't preclude, JASCOM setting the fees wouldn't preclude us arguing that the county's fees should be a little different. It doesn't necessarily mean that the fees are going to be identical across the county. It just means that JASCOM board would make that decision. And so that's the proposal in the new ILA, and we would have to decide whether we are comfortable with that. So, and again, I'm not asking for anybody's decision. It's just, I'm just giving you a heads up that this is headed our way.
Can a separate entity establish a fee that would be imposed on county residents without us completely buying off on it?
So I would assume that provides recommendation to the legislative authority as to how the fee should be placed.
There's language that's been proposed. Our code does not, they've gone through each jurisdiction's code. Thurston County doesn't say anything about the fees, whereas some of the other municipalities do. So the proposal would be to say, license fees shall be adopted by reference as determined annually by the Joint Animal Services Board. So and this has gone through some kind of preliminary legal, but it's going to go to our legal team to weigh in on it. That's the next step, probably. It's coming, but that would be the proposal, and I think that's how they're getting around it. Is the board is essentially adopting by reference an action of the JASCOM board. Obviously, if there's a legal impediment, that's going to be there, but that's the concept is that we have that, because it's just difficult to have it. It's difficult to get a consistent policy when there's, when you got to go back to the different jurisdictions who usually follow the JASCOM recommendation anyway. That's the proposal.
Gary, I have a question for Ty, but do you have a question, Gary, regarding that?
Well, I just wonder about giving up our legislative authority to an unelected body. So I do have questions, but I don't know the answers, so I'm not going to get into it, but I do have some concerns. That's
the body is made up of elected officials.
Well, but I don't think a city councilman from a different jurisdiction can make a legislative decision for this body. That's all.
My question, Ty, is not that I'm against it, but what is the board missing by not having a nonprofit on there? And for example, one of the employees represented the Humane Society. Is that the nonprofit, or is what's the value added?
Yeah, it's a good question. That was not one of my. I'm trying to remember. We did this a couple of months ago, and I'm trying to remember the argument. I'll get some information for you on that. I don't recall exactly who made the argument and what the persuasive argument was for adding another board member. I think it was not. It was just about. You're right. There is a Humane Society, and that there's a historical component to that in terms of how JASCOM was set up to begin with.
Yeah.
I think the Humane Society basically did what JASCOM does, and so when the organization was formed and transferred over, the Humane Society retained that sort of hand in there.
And you don't have to have an answer now, but I was just thinking, what are they missing? What they decided? Hey, we need to have another body at the table, another person, maybe nonprofit.
We have 6 members. I mean, part of it was like to have an odd number of members. We have the 4 jurisdictions plus a veterinarian and a Humane Society is the current board, and then only the jurisdictions can vote on budget items that relate to the jurisdiction's finances.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, that's coming.
Gary, any commissioner items?
No, sir.
Wow, we're in agreement. I don't have any either.
There you go. Finished ahead of schedule.
So this meeting of December 1st, 2020, the agenda setting work session is adjourned. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.